Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to another live. How we doing today, my friends? How are you enjoying your Friday? Happy Friday evening. You made it to the end of the week. The long international break is maybe about halfway done. The last one for some time without football. So you've made it pretty far if you've made it to today, if you've made it to this evening. But I hope everyone's doing all right. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all feeling good. Hopefully you spend some time this weekend, catching up on things and living your life. It's interesting just how quiet it is during the international breaks when United aren't absolutely crap and all of that. But there has been a lot of very interesting transfer things and little notes and targets and scouting reports and things like that I want to talk about, because that's what we're doing during this international break. That's what I'm doing during this international break in terms of the content wise is putting together all of this sort of information, all this sort of information about what we're looking at. Was I referring to Jacquet yesterday as one of the center back prospects? Not just him. He's one that I wanted to see more confirmation that we were watching for sure, but certainly there's others too that we haven't heard yet, so we'll see. Welcome, Austin. You follow me on TikTok first, YouTube. That might be the first time someone has said that they came via TikTok to the YouTube, but I appreciate that because I've been trying to be more consistent over there on the socials platforms and things, and some of them have done pretty well recently, so I'm glad to hear the pipeline is going in both directions now. So appreciate that. Thank you, Austin. Keith Schmidt to replace Mount. We'll talk about him. The links we had today. You got to email the club your recommendations. Hello, Yasser. Schmidt also seems to be the same profile as Stiller. Yes, certainly more of an attacking 8. We'll get to that. What's up, 50? What's up, RJ? But yes, I hope everybody is doing well. Yoro and Jacquet are playing together now for the under-21s. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good link. It's a very, very good link, and they're very much the type of player that United are looking for. So let's dive right into everything without too much further ado ahead of time to talk about what's going on. Obviously, we'll start with center backs. On the center back front,
would you bring Ghana back on a free? CM depth and academy lad.
No. I like James Garner. I don't think there's really a point. You know what I mean? I don't think there's really a point. Let me just say it that way. I like him, but I think we should only be signing the best of the best in the present. Okay? That's it. I think we should just be only signing the best of the best, nothing else. That's it right now. We need to be Jacquet. Okay, fair enough. I think we need to be signing, the best of the best on that front. Just go for the top players, because we need to be signing starting level players. We need our players to become depth. We've too often not done that. We need to right now just be getting very, very good players with really, really high ceilings. That's why I have a few doubts on a couple of names, but especially positions like the midfield. We've already got Bruno and Mainu who could be depth and are players at the club that I would like to keep in certain capacities. We don't need to sign more depth, if you get me. What we don't have for me is nailed on starting level talents in certain positions right now for the long haul. So no in that respect. So let's start with center backs, and then we'll talk about the midfield. On the center back front, as we know from speaking earlier in the week, that United are in the process of finding more center backs. And one of the next phases of the evolution of the Amorim system, of the Amorim progression of this team in general, is to get center backs who are really, really good with the ball, but also very aggressive, brave on the ball, aggressive out of possession. We need to step that up another level. As good as they've been, as good as guys like De Ligt have been, we need to go to that next level. That's where we are heading in the next phase of recruitment out the back. And certainly there are names they're looking at. We talked about some of the more known names, some of the more difficult maybe to obtain names like Schlotterbeck and Lukeba and names like that. But today we have links to maybe some different ones. One that is very exciting from France is Jacquet. And he's playing with Lenny Yoro in the youth national team at the moment, or the under-21s national team, whichever it is at the moment. That's a really, really interesting link that I want to talk about and go over the stats here. So that's what we're going to get into. Player that United are watching, and I think he fits quite well. Really need our youngins to step into the first 11. Yes, I would agree with that. Let's take a look here at his numbers on this front. So if we take a look at him here, we can see, what is he really good at based on the numbers. Great in the air. That's good, right? That's one of the things that we need is a guy who is very, very good in the air. We need more of that. They've got to be able to step up into the midfield really well. High volume of passes, high completion percentage on forward passes, good in progression, possessions won. It looks like the types of center backs that we're talking about, right? It looks like the type of names that we've been linked to, that we're looking at, these more progressive, forward-going types of center backs, that we want in there, and high ranking in a lot of these areas on the ball, and he's young. I mean, 20 years old, really good already. We've seen that be an excellent addition to the team. And so this is one of the names that we've been looking at here in terms of center backs. If we want to look at some of the things here, like progressive passes and progressive carries by adjustment, he's right kind of in the middle here in France, but he's young. He's young, and there's other things obviously that he's very good at. It's not just about progressive passing, of course, too. A lot of it can just simply be about, forward passes. It could just be about, just in general, being a very good passer of the ball, in terms of just volume, being good. And so he's above average in this respect, but a young player with room to grow. So that's an exciting one to look at. Jacquet could be a very, very good young player. A lot of people really like him. I think as well, from what I can see, he'd be flexible enough where he could play in the center. He could also play out wide in one of the positions. Now, maybe you'd say, well, he's not left-footed, so he's not going to play on the left. Maybe not. We've seen that, maybe that's a necessity that we need a lefty on the left. Maybe it will be less so in the future. Maybe he'll be in the center. Maybe it's just having a hell of a lot of options, So he's a very, very good young player. Maybe somebody who comes in and replaces like a Harry Maguire, in the squad. And not necessarily an instant starter over like De Ligt, but someone that can grow into the role. So you have like De Ligt and Yoro and Jacquet, and they can all play in these central and right center back positions and things like that. So I think he'd be competent in both of those positions and flexible. He's good. Yes, he's very good on carrying the ball. So he fits a lot of the wide things, but he has a lot of the physical traits for central center back as well. So that's a name that I'm very, very excited about as well. Then there was another name that we're looking at, which was Mite. I'm going to say it wrong here, right? But he's a striker at Rennes. Sorry, you're going to get blasted here. His stats so far this season look incredible. Good in the air, doing lots of like everything, I guess, except, I don't know. He's scoring above his expected goals. He's winning duels. He's top of expected assists. He's top of the aerials. Big, good 18 years old only. Now, at the striker position, I think that would be something just bear in mind as we're talking through some of these young names that we're talking about now that are coming out. We're just looking, okay? Right now, we're just looking, right? But it does speak to the fact of what was, you go back to the video we did the other day. Let's pull it up and talk about one of the areas that we'll potentially look at because we got links to both of them. And I think that it's exciting because it tells us that we are planning. Just the fact that we're looking. And bear in mind, we're just looking. We're just looking. Okay? We're just looking. You know, this is early doors, but the fact that we're keeping an eye on these players is really important because let's go take a look at this really quick. Click. Go through the 8s again. So we have all these names here, right? Center backs, Gehi, Inacio, Lukeba, Schlotterbeck, Tabast, and then we're talking about, you know, Jacquet as a potential name in here. If we compare some of these guys, some of the younger guys, let's go like Tabast and all of that, you can see that, you know, what we're looking for is progressive players, guys who can play with the ball well, carry the ball well. You know, there's a lot of those kinds of qualities in there. We're keeping eyes on some of these younger players for the future, you know, all of that. I think that he's a really good player, good young player, very exciting talent, but we do know we need a center back, and a young player like him could make a ton of sense in that position where we do have a lot of players. But then the next part is exciting to me, the fact that we're being very forward thinking and planning ahead in all of this as well, right? Because remember, I talked about how we were going to look at weaker positions, and these are the ones mostly on the radar, wing back and striker, right? How is it going to work out with that backup striker? Is it going to be Xerxes? Is he not going to fit? Do we need to get somebody to step up into that role? All of that. So in addition to looking at these young center back prospects where we're definitely going to sign one, what we're also doing is looking at young strikers, young wingbacks, and other positions where maybe we're going to make a transfer, maybe we're not. But the good part is we've got it on our radar, and we're looking at very, very talented young players that fit into what we need in these positions. So we have this young striker at Rennes. We have a link to another wingback over there at Sporting that we'll get to in a second. They're being very smart at keeping their eyes open for the future because those are the next two positions after the two midfielders, after the center backs, that we're going to look back to and say, do we have everything we need here, or do we need to address it? But you don't want to go dump a bunch of money into those positions again after you've already bought. So maybe it's just about getting some more prospects and things like that in that position. And that seems to be what they're doing. It's clever planning. So far, all of the signs, everything that I see, I know I'm a positive guy, but everything I see leads me to believe that they know what they're doing. At the very least, they're thinking with the right direction for the club. Being prepared, something we have not always been in the past. So that part of it is very exciting to me, that United are being prepared. Now, you just joined. You want to see the names? Okay, so there are a couple of names that we've covered so far are Jacquet, the center back at Rennes, 20 years old. And then there's Mete. Am I saying that right? Can somebody correct me? Mete? I don't know. I'm going to get the name wrong. Apologies. But yeah, Mete. These are two names in France that we're watching, you know, at the moment. So those are very, very exciting signs that the club are keeping up on that. But Jacquet, given that that's a position that we're actually following right now, it's a good sign. That's a very, very good sign. That's a good sign that he is a player that we're following right now. Mete. Accent on the last E. Mete. All right, something like that. I think I've got it about right. So yeah, this one's a solid one that will probably add to our list. Jacquet, add him to that big list. And right now, obviously what we're doing, we're building that big list out. The club and me, you know, in terms of following this, because this is my aim with you guys, with the audience, with everybody, with my channel, is obviously keep up with this, you know, add the names that we get, build the big list out, look at everything. So you're always up on what is actually happening and where we are going with this club in the future. So that come summer, we kind of know what we're doing. And if you look at last summer, that worked out pretty well. We knew we were going for Cunha. We knew we were going for a striker, at least I did. And we had a bunch of names, and we knew we were going to go for Brian Mbumo as a player pretty early there in summer. And we also had that keeper situation, even though it took ages to actually get to it. So that's kind of the idea again. And with more time to prepare, I think we can. I'm not saying they won't surprise us with certain things, because they've been really good at keeping things quiet. And, you know, once you get into actually making deals, it's hard to know what can actually get done. But I think we'll have a good idea of what they're going to do in general. So that one's really good. I'm very excited by what we're doing in the transfer market in terms of watching players and things like that. That's been very, very exciting at this point. So we'll keep building our big list, and then we'll start narrowing it down. But yeah, the French league, I think, is a really good place for midfielders and defenders. Certainly it is as well. Let's look at the next one. The next one that we were linked to from our good friend Sully. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this name. A lot of people have been talking about this name. A lot of people. But anybody, a bunch of people have been talking about this name for quite a while and suggesting him. A lot of big clubs are looking at him, and this is Schmidt over at in the Dutch league. I'm not going to say much about it. I'm not going to judge it. I haven't watched him for a second. You'll know how I feel about the Dutch league. So I'm going to keep my doubts private, because I cannot say that I should be applying my doubts to any sort of blanket statement, but I am naturally going to have heavy doubts over practically anybody coming from the Dutch league, just because I'm sorry, I am. It's not a reflection on whether he's a top player or not. Okay. It's not. It's a bias. It's a total bias. Okay. Leave it at that. But but he is really highly rated, and a lot of clubs are following him and looking at it at this point. Now, Keith Schmidt is definitely by the numbers an 8. You know, a player that, you know, is going to play in those you know, in the 8 position. As similar as you look to like Bruno and as I see it, Anderson, even though Anderson is very, very competent defensively and things like that. Yeah, look, guys, Van de Beek outplayed Real Madrid's midfield in the Champions League, all right? You can't fool me. We'll see, all right? I'm just not ready to pass those kinds of judgments, okay? I watched Donny Van de Beek. People claim he was destined to Real Madrid at one point, if you don't remember, and then Real Madrid pulled out of buying him at the last minute, and we stepped in and did it, okay? Just saying, I've seen this story before. I'm not going to be convinced until I actually see a player play, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at him. That doesn't mean he won't be a good player. Obviously, Frankie de Jong was a great player. De Ligt is coming into his own as well. But I'm just saying, man, like, it's hard to make those kind of comparisons, okay, at this point in time. It's just hard to do that. I'm going to hold my doubts close to my chest and let it be. If they feel good about it, I feel good about it. Let's put it that way, if they like him. If you look at it by the numbers, you know, similar to like an Angelo Stiller, when we look at the numbers on this, you know, this is interception. So, you know, he's not a defender. That is for sure. He's a good dueler. He's very, very good on the ball. But he's, you know, he's not going to be a defensive, like, he's not a defensive dynamo by any stretch of the imagination. He's low on most defensive stats here. So you're talking about another guy who is like in these 8 positions, you know, Stiller, Schmidt, similar type of players. They're going to come in. They're probably going to be in those 8 positions if they were to join the team. So is it a Bruno replacement? Is it a Kobe replacement? What are we looking at there, right? But yeah, that's Schmidt, and obviously this is a similar player in that respect to that profile of that sort of attacking 8 and things like that. Does that means Mainu is gone? I don't think anything means Mainu is gone as of yet. However, it's very obvious, if you ask me right now, if you ask me today, there's obviously the what the club are looking at, what's going on. It's pretty bluntly clear that there's a serious question mark over what's going to happen this next summer between Kabi and Bruno. That one or both is leaving. It feels inevitable that one or both is leaving next summer. That's how it feels right now. It seems like the club are preparing for that in terms of how they're looking, at players and how they're scouting, and a lot of the types of players that we're being linked to. It just feels that way, essentially. That's how it feels. So yeah, that's the tricky part of all of this, is that certainly it is. It just does. It feels like something's happening there, and obviously there is something happening there. There's obviously genuine doubts about whether Kabi wants to stay and wants to be a part of the team. And if Bruno stays, will Kabi be accepting that position? We've discussed it enough that we know that is a concern at the moment. You're also very interested in the Sporting kid, and that's the last name to talk about today, which we have very, very little data on. But this is Salvador Bloppa, according to Simon Jones of the Daily Mail. The versatile 18-year-old spent most of the time as fullback, wingback, but can play further forward. Now, our friend Sam Fonseca, from who we did a video with way back in the day, Sporting fan, content creator, and all of that, had a few things to say, as well as somebody else. So I just wanted to share that. He says he's played only once in the first team, but he scored a brace on his debut. Can track back very intensively in the hybrid role he does quite often for the B team. Still very raw, though, so personally don't see it. And another guy that, he pointed out, lacking technical refinement, far from elite in type spaces, but compensating with elite physicality. Dominant open space and versatility, plays hybrid roles, which allowed him to maraud down the right and left flank. I'll be honest with you guys, it sounds like Dorgu to me. It sounds like Dorgu to me. The description sounds like Dorgu. Top physical traits, maybe not technically refined at this point in time. Marauding down the wide areas, sounds like Dorgu. Another option, because we want to keep loading up on talents that we're looking at, but I wouldn't read into that much as of yet. Clearly isn't a player that is at the standpoint of being ready today, or anything like that to step into the role. But as I said, we're keeping an eye on striker, on wingback, on keeping an eye on more opportunities. If one of our young guys doesn't step up into one of those positions, we'll obviously want to get more young players in addition to potentially buying senior players. So just another name to kind of keep in mind, to follow. Do United continue to follow that, in that respect? So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. But clearly, United are keeping their eyes on lots of things. I saw some stuff about Roscoe again. People again really high on him, saying he's been playing exceptional in the games that he's been playing. Very, very exciting times. Do you think Semenyo could play left wing back? Yes, 100%. I think Semenyo could play left wing back. And I think he would be incredible in the left wing back. And I think that some people would really not like that, but I think he could. Humphrey, a while back, you said really need our youngsters to step into the first 11, and that is the case as well, right? When we're talking about striker, when we're talking about wing back, when we're talking about some of these positions, we need a couple of these guys to step up into that role and make the leap into the first team to help us solve some of these problems as well, because obviously we're keeping an eye on a lot of stuff, for sure as well. Yeah, Roscoe, as I've been saying recently, the view I've got, the feedback I've got, is a lot of excitement about him. You don't want to go over the top, but there's a lot of excitement about him. So I think things are coming along nicely. I think things are coming along really, really nicely in terms of building out kind of the lists and things. And yeah, I think that. I think it's coming along very, very nicely. It's been an interesting week looking at this. Everything's been timed really well, because obviously we've been talking about, the recruitment, the direction, the positions that we're looking at, how we're filling in the rebuild. And here we are, United are scouting young players and senior players in every position. And that's been the strategy from the beginning, if you remember, that the idea was we need senior players and we need young players. And that's how we rebuild the club for the future so that it has longevity. We've got to have guys who can play now, and we need options for the future, because what if they don't all work out? And they seem to be operating very, very well within that kind of framework. That at wingback, we've got a couple. We'll look at a couple young ones. At center back, we've got a bunch of senior center backs. Let's get some young prospects in there too. At striker, the same. The only positions where it's not like that is the midfield. We've recruited a bunch of young midfielders already, right? Between Kone and Orozco, and now potentially we'll go for 2 senior players. So we're filling it up where we're going to have serious starting 11 type senior players and then youth players behind them. So we might have Gomes and Anderson and young players coming in behind, whether it be Menu and hopefully maybe a Orozco and someone like that. And the same at fullback and at striker, as we've talked about, Šeško, and then, you know, Kanabiek and Cheeto and maybe this other name. And it's at center back, De Ligt and Yoro and Jacquet and all of that. So it seems to be a really good strategy where come a year or two from now, we're going to have so many prospects in our team on loan all over the place that I feel like we're never going to be so short ever again. And that to me is a solid aspect of what they're doing that's creating longevity for the future. It seems like that's the strategy. I keep banging on about Kone. He's going to be A++. So I wanted to discuss that next. Kone potentially going out on loan, according to Christopher Michel, of course, who was, I think, part of reporting it originally in that respect, right? So what he said was that, you know, basically due to injuries, things like that, they want to get him out on loan. I think the point here is that they really need Kone to go up into the next level of playing for the first team, getting first team experience, getting men's football experience. He's not going to, you know, learn much more at the under 21s level, but at the same time, he needs to play, but he's had all these injuries, so it's hard to fit him into, like, maybe the United step is too big at the moment if we're not settled enough, and, you know, we need to have him prove his physicality and his fitness and things like that for a while. So, you know, it seems like that's the strategy with him, but I think that's what we need to do. Look at the loans, man. Let's get these guys out on loan. Look at Amas. You know, look at what it did for Ahmad. Look at what it's done for so many of these really young players. I wish we'd done it so much more. You look at Chelsea and how they would list loan players out and bring them back and all over the place, and City and all these clubs did the same. We're finally getting to some of that. I think it's a really good idea to get Kone out there because I see tons of quality in him. If he has a good second half of the season on loan somewhere, then he could be a real option next season as well. I think that's a really that one's really, really interesting. But yeah, Orozco playing first team level, you know, is very exciting as well. So that's an interesting one, that Kone thing. I like that one a lot. Amos is going to be our backup left wing back next season. He could well be. Someone was saying, I understand your desire to buy top players. I don't get how Joao Gomes fits with. I like him, but a league average midfielder. Well, he's a lot better than league average, in my opinion. Okay, I'll just put it that way. For one, he's well above average, in my view. Let me find something for you because somebody shared me a really good graph a little earlier in Discord. So, was sharing it a bit earlier, and I want to pull this up again because I think that you're definitely underrating just how good Gomes has actually been on so many measurements. Because he's playing for a poor team, it can be definitely hard to see that. But I think my view is also this has been consistent on Amarim, but I think also in general. In the midfield, one of the reasons we've been short is we're always going for star power. Look at what we've done. We bought Pogba, and we didn't have the grinders. When did we play best? What was our best performing team? What was the midfield? McFred. It was our best performing team. And I'm not talking about like a 4-game stretch where Matic and Pogba and everything worked and magically everybody was fit and happy and working at the same time, because that stretch was really, really small. Our best midfield that had any kind of consistency was McFred. They could compete in every game. We have lacked a solid, slightly above average, physical, and workhorse baseline for a long time. We have. We keep buying stars, and then it's Bruno, and who's great, amazing with the ball. Off ball, okay. Casemiro, aging. You know what I mean? Matic, on his last legs. Eriksen, on his last legs. Pogba, on his day, man. You know, not healthy enough. Like, Herrera was decent, but people also don't remember he wasn't fit half the time. Like, if we had McFred today, we'd be doing better. If we had Ollie's McFred right now, it would be better than what we have presently. I guarantee you that. We'd get more consistent performances. But I'm not saying they're better players than Bruno and Casemiro. I'm just saying we had stability. To me, we need really good players. Mountain's injury prone. Yeah, exactly. We need really good players, but we need stability more than anything. Stability. Keenan's calls. I'm talking about the last like 10 years. You know what I mean? Yeah, they were frustrating. McFred were. Don't get me wrong. They totally were. They weren't like the best midfielders on earth. It wasn't the best midfield ever, but they gave us a baseline that we could be stable on. We don't have a baseline. We haven't had a baseline for a long time. We haven't had a floor of physical competition. We haven't had a floor of physical competitiveness in the midfield for quite a long time. So what I'm saying is that what we lacked is a squad of midfielders where, yes, we need really good players, but we also need a lot of midfielders who provide us with a baseline. They don't have to be starting every game, right? We're going to have multiple competitions. We're going to have to make subs. We're going to have to do things like that. And he's guys like Gomes are players that will give you a 6 out of 10 to 7 out of 10 all the time, where you're making subs, you're rotating, you're changing, and you know what you're going to get. And they're always going to keep you in the fight, and they're always going to be competitive, and they're always going to be giving you that energy and physicality. That's what you're getting most of the time, right? And just, I'll show you this graph on Gomes, which is it's not just on Gomes, obviously, but this is a graph of, total duel rating and progressive actions per 100 touches. Now you'll see Bruno down here at the bottom, because again, I'll say this, you got to really dig into this a little bit more. I said the other day, and I know people don't want to accept this, and some people may not agree with this. You're going to have a hard time playing with Bruno, because while he runs around a lot and there's a lot of things that he does, he is not a successful dueler at all. But he is a great ball progressor. So you're like dying in the fight, when you're playing next to Bruno, right? That's just a part of it. This one's small. Hold on. I was trying to see if I could see Casemiro on here. If somebody spots Casemiro on here, let me know, right? But if you look at it, overall, and kind of look up in this area, I'm saying he's a good option. This is progression and dual rating. You have Joao Gomes right up here among the best center mids in the league. You just do. He shows up really well on like every kind of measure. So mid, left, and right. Oh, there he is. So a good dual winner, not a ton of progressive actions per 100 touches, because as well, you're not dribbling the ball. Gomes is just very good. He's just, I don't know where he will be. I don't know where he'll be in the long term. I don't know where he can get to. I don't know what his ceiling is. But what I do know is that he's decent. And he would help us today, and he would help us do more in the future. He's got high energy. He's good on the ball. Whether he's a starter in the long term doesn't matter. Yeah, I had Joao Gomes on our infamous transfer chart. And by the way, if I were to go back on that transfer chart, you will find 90% of those names since that time have been linked to United in media and publicly by others. Time has cast itself well on that transfer chart. I think 90 to 95% of those players have ended up being reported as targets for United in the next 12 to 18 months. Just saying. Just the truth. But anyway, regardless of any of that, he's just good. And he could be affordable, and he could be obtainable, and he would help the midfield. But again, as I was saying the other day, I want a squad of midfielders. I want 5, 6 midfielders. I want a lot of midfielders in this team, so we have tons of options. I want Gomes and Kone and Orozco and Kabi and 1 to 2 other ones, so that we've got tons of options, because we're going to be playing a hell of a lot of games, and I think we're going to need to be changing it a lot moving forward, in the next few years, in competitions and in things like that. And so I think that helps a lot. I think that would be, those are the types of players you can get. Would I prefer to get Adam Wharton and Elliot Anderson, who I think have incredibly high ceilings? Of course. If I could only get 2. But what's possible, what's viable, what we can get, what will improve us, and what maybe that doesn't withhold you from in the future getting more midfielders, That's how I see it. That's my view on the matter. That's why you want just so many. You just want so many players in different respects. So yeah. So that's my view. So anyway, it's interesting times. It's an interesting week seeing a lot of these little links and things kind of pop up, and we're gonna keep adding to our new transfer chart. I'm gonna keep referring back to this PowerPoint. And then we'll build it out and we'll look at it again. Definitely, we will be doing that. But exciting names. I mean, like I was saying the other day, I don't hate any of the names. I don't hate any of the names that I see. Like, I don't mind any of them. There's like no names we're getting linked to that we're scouting, that we're watching, and I'm going, that guy's shit. Don't want that guy. I've got some doubts on a few, like they need to be in the right positions and things like that, obviously. But I look at the names we're talking about and I'm like, okay, cool. Sounds good to me. I see the logic. I see what you're doing here. And I'm willing to give them some trust, at this point. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at in these days. So, let's see. Is Gomes in the Brazil squad? I think he is, but I don't actually know, to be quite honest. I have actually no idea. I haven't kept up with it as much as I don't know. Rabiot going to join end of the January window? I don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll probably be staying away from some problematic things. What are the other Prem defenders now? Not yet. But think left-sided defenders at some of our maybe competition. Left-sided defenders at some of the clubs that we are in competition with. Like, and I mean like, not necessarily like just in competition with. Reminds you of Sancho. You guys talking about Turkey reminds you of Sancho. Yeah, there's some similarities. Kind of a little chunky boy. Maybe he doesn't have that elite athleticism or determination, but he is very, very good. Definitely suits the way that City play better. Not super high energy. Being able to be on the ball and things like that. For sure. And Rabiot's mom playing a pivot. By the focus on the left side, we have Luke, Licha, and Aiden. Well, I think because look at those names. You know what I'm saying? Luke, injury prone. Licha hasn't played in ages. Has barely played over the last 2 years. and have been very, very young. I don't think any of them are like guys I would hang my hat on for the next 5 years. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I have no way to hang my hat on them for the next 5 years. So, yeah, the other thing that's been reported was, of course, that Joshua Zirkzee would be staying in January. Now, I said recently he was going to get some opportunities under with Šeško being out, and I think that they probably sat down, had that discussion, and hopefully he does, because I think it would be good to see him get some run in this team. I think it would be. I think I still have hopes for Zirkzee to be something. I'm not sure what. I don't know what Zirkzee is yet in this team, but I think he's going to be something. I think he still has a chance to be something with the qualities that he has. Do I think Martinez takes Shaw's spot this season? No. No. Like I said, I think people are... You just got to watch, you know. You got to be a little bit worried about those injuries. You have to still take that into consideration as something. You know, the injuries are still going to be a factor coming back from those injuries. How does he recover? The athleticism, the ability to cover open spaces, all that aggression. I think Shaw is doing a really, really good job right now. Does Manu's contract situation affect his loan request? I don't think his contract situation affects his loan request. I think his contract situation affects what's happening at the club with him in general. You know? I think it does. If Shaw stays fit, he's going to stay in the job. Yeah. He's the starting. He is the least rotated player in the squad. Besides, I think Bruno and I'm saying positionally, him and Bruno, I think, are the only two players that have played the same position and started every single Premier League game, if I'm not mistaken. Zirkzee's so techie, I'm comfy he'll find a place. Well, that's the thing, right? You take a player like him, and I look at the next 5 to 10 games, 8 of them against bottom half. We need the ball. We've got to be able to get in a player that helps us keep the ball, control the game, dominate possession a bit more. We have to have a place for a guy like that. We need to be able to use a player like that. We need to have those kind of qualities. Be in a player like that. We need that real bad, you know. De Ligt's played every game, yes, but he's been moved from center to right on a few occasions. Shaw and Bruno have played in their spots every single game in the Premier League this season, if I'm not mistaken. They're the only two. Everybody else has been moved around. Even Mbeumo has been swapped around a couple of times. Shaw and Bruno are like his anchors in terms of team selection right now. Chima is a permanent Stuttgart player, yes, and then Madrid have a buyback or something, if I'm not mistaken. It's him or Mount that comes in. I don't know if I'd rather have Mount. Well, that's the thing, right? Mount provides a lot of the same things, but with Šeško, I would strongly consider. I want to see Casemiro's not played every game in the Prem. I want to see Šeško with Cunha and Mbeumo on either side of him, or Zirkzee with Cunha and Mbeumo on either side of him. And I want it so that they can run off of him and have a slightly different role in that team. I want to see that. I don't think you get that necessarily in the same way with Mount, because with Zirkzee, you have a bit more height, different attributes and things like that. So it's just something I really want to see, and I hope we try it, because I think it'll help Cunha quite a bit, having someone to play off of who's similar in that respect. But yeah, hopefully we hear some more names and some more things. I don't know if there's been any other interesting stories this week that I haven't covered, but mostly I've been focused on building out this list for recruitment. What are we looking at? What are we doing? Where are we going? Because it's going to get really busy between now and January in terms of the games. So we'll see on these names how it develops, and if there's anything we can get on January. The Monday game against Everton gives our players extra days rest. I mean, it gives them theirs too, but yes, 3 points is a must for sure. It's at home against Everton. We need to win that. Anything else? Otherwise, probably won't drag today's live out. I definitely will say, if you haven't watched the video from the other day on the recruitment, the names, all of that, it's good. It's gonna be something that works for quite a while. I saw some stories about Sansoni and Data. I don't know how you rate Data. You know, like we've had these discussions in the past where it's like, well, how do you rate executives? Well, he's a top 4 executive, a top 6. I don't know. Obviously, it feels like we're doing better on a lot of things. How? Don't know. Hard to describe. Whatever the analysis is, whatever we're coming up with, it seems like we're figuring some things out. One of the things I think is that I really want to see in these next some games, and that's why I'm curious about Joshua Zirkzee. And I think this is where data, where analysts, where things like that come into play, because they're going to be getting with Ruben Amorim. They're going to be discussing. They're going to be talking about, strategy, things like that. How do we improve in possession? How do we improve now in possession where against these smaller sides we have a bit more of the ball so we don't end up conceding so many chances? How do we do that? That's the thing I want to see in the next 5 games, big time. That's going to be the telling for me as to whether we'll make it through the season and get into Champions League. Because if we can sort that out for the smaller games and just see growth in that area, I think we'll be all right. How are you feeling? I think we're good on the next 5 games because I think we score goals. But what I don't see yet is I want to see us reducing the chances by controlling those small sides a bit better. And something's got to give for that to happen. Be it in the midfield, be it somehow up front and supporting the midfield. Maybe it's Zirkzee dropping in. Maybe it's, I don't know. But there has to be some sort of personnel change, in my opinion, to sort that out. You think in possession we go 3-5-2? Yeah, I think that's part of it, right? It's like moving. That's why I'm looking at someone like Zirkzee and saying, could he move him in and naturally he's going to drop into the midfield, push Cunha and Mbeumo up off of him, give us a bit more movement, a bit more energy in the middle, to keep the ball and get those wing backs high so we can play the ball out wide. But I think you need to play Dorgu alongside that because you need his up and down. But that to me would be something. If we're not going to change the midfield, I think we're going to need, Zirkzee and Dorgu with Ahmad out wide. And then that way we can shift the dynamic enough with the players that are on the pitch. So we'll see. We'll see. If Ineos were to sell their stake in Mercedes that funds the stadium, there's something about that. Yeah, 2 million? 2 million? That's it? Or is it 2 billion? Because 2 million would not be enough. 2 million ain't going to help us. But yeah, 2 billion would be pretty good. 2 billion would be nice. That would be helpful. You'd like to see Ugarte. Well, that's the other thing. Could we go with the injury? Do we go Casemiro and Ugarte and push Bruno into the 10 finally? Not saying it's even better, but could we? Could we go Bruno, Cunha, and Mbeumo in the front 3, get Casemiro and Ugarte in the middle? I think we would be better at reducing and limiting the chances we concede with that. We were last year when we did that. Don't know. Might be. I just want to see something. That's what I'm looking for when we come back. I have a feeling. I know that it's under discussion. I know that it's under evaluation. How do we limit these chances we're conceding now? Each time, every few weeks, we start to fix like another thing, and then it gets better, and we fix another thing and it gets better. That's the next thing to fix. So we'll see. All right, my friends, I'm going to end it there. Thank you all for hanging out with me today. Again, make sure to catch up the video. Later today or in the morning, have a special video that's coming out on someone else's channel that I'll be a collaborator on. So you go watch it on his. It'll show, like, I don't know how the whole collaborator thing works, but see it on his channel. You'll see it on his channel. I think you'll see it on mine. I don't know how the whole collaboration thing works, but there's myself and 2 other people that I've collaborated with before, and we'll be on that video. It'll be tonight, tomorrow morning, good hour-long podcast style discussion on lots of things. So make sure you check that out. And otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow with who knows what as well. Okay. Thank you all. Bosch, Manchukutioner, big up to you as well, my friend. Levi, thank you. Thank you, Smokey, Marcus, DB Cooper, everybody. I'm just heading out, DB, so you'll have to rewind to watch. But thank you all for hanging out today. See you later. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Good luck, everybody. Okay. It'll show up. You'll get a notification if you're following me, and it'll show up in my feed, but it's going to be on Samik's football, his channel. Okay. So you'll find it there, but it will show up on my channel as well. Okay. Bye, everybody. See you later. Have a good day.